Hey everybody, welcome back to Black Lotus, where we talk about all things strange and unusual. And good news, we are back as of tomorrow, and we are back to doing our regular venue. I think we are going to continue to upload our audio-only podcasts here for the time being. Anyway, I'm not sure, but yeah. So you can expect those, I think, like every Saturday. But yeah, as of tomorrow, we are going to be doing our first regular venue for Black Lotus
While
for a while. I think it's been since the COVID shutdown that we haven't been able to do it. But yeah, we are coming back tomorrow, and our first episode back is going to be about Travis Walton, who you may or may not know. Is a famous abductee case, UFO abductee case, and they even made a movie out of it, and it was called Fire in the Sky. So definitely join us for that. Today we are going to be talking with AnneMarie Balog, and she is a psychic medium who has some interesting divination techniques, and she's also going to do some readings for us. And but before we get into that, I want to remind everybody that we do have that podcast, and it is over at PodBean, and I'll drop a link for that. And we have some really interesting guests there, and yeah, definitely check it out. Again, I'll drop a link. And then also, don't forget that we have a discussion group over at Facebook called the Black Lotus Discussion Group. And we have a great bunch of people. It's not like your typical alien, UFO, ghost, paranormal groups there. A lot of them on Facebook are really kind of silly. They post, funny little memes and all that, and we don't do that. We actually have discussions there. So if you're into talking about this kind of stuff, we would highly encourage you to go there, and that's facebook.com/groups/Black Lotus Discussion Group. Lastly, I just want to remind you all to like and subscribe to our videos here and to our channel. We talk about a lot of things that are interesting here, and I highly suggest that you, if this is your first time here, go check out our other videos, and I think you're really going to like it. So, but anyway, without further ado, let's get on to the interview with AnneMarie. We've had AnneMarie Balog on the show with us once before on our YouTube channel, which is Black Lotus Productions. And folks, if you haven't gone to our YouTube channel, I highly suggest that you do. It's a little different than what we do here. We report the news here, and then we have interviews here. But there, we talk about certain topics. Anything strange and unusual, everything from UFOs to aliens to cryptids. What else, Ralph? We talk about conspiracy theories, and in fact, this week we are going to be talking about Travis Walton and his abduction case. But in any case, AnneMarie Balog is a psychic medium, and she uses divination techniques, certain divination techniques to contact the other side. And she's going to do some divination for us. And today we have with us, Ralph and I have with us my beautiful wife, Terry, and because she's going to be involved with this as well. But in any case, we're going to get to that in a little bit. AnneMarie, let me say hi, and how are you doing?
Hi, Damian. Hi, Ralph. Hi, Terry. I'm doing great. Good to talk to you guys.
Yeah, it's always good to talk to you. Now, you and I have always been kind of simpatico, I swear to God, because, we don't talk that often. We're friends on Facebook, and we don't talk that often. But every now and again, I'll think, I need to contact her and talk to her about something. And within a minute or so, there you are popping up in my direct messaging. It's weird how that happens with you. But I think I want to start. I think I want to start today by having you tell our listeners, because we have a whole new group of listeners here at PodBean for our podcast. Tell them a little bit about yourself and how you came into having these experiences.
Gosh, okay, I don't know where to start. So, all right, so I'll start age 11. I broke my neck. And I made a pact with God because I had to sign away my organs and say goodbye to my parents that night. And so at that point, like for real, 11 years old, Catholic church, like Catholic school since kindergarten, I'm like, all right, like let me live and I'll serve you. So I don't know, years go by. Um, um, I start to learn meditation. Um, 95, I move up to the mountains of northeastern Pennsylvania. Spend some time alone, learn about Reiki healing energy. Um, Start to connect with that, and then I got my first tarot cards. Um, I've had a couple experiences before that with some spirits. One was a friend's dad came through in the bedroom at their house. I had no idea. Um, there's a lot of random little things that I never really kind of like thought too much about. And so then I started with tarot cards and with Reiki and started to see some interesting things with those. And so around 97, I got my cards. They're called the Spiral Tarot deck. I love them. I use them exclusively. Um, and in around 2009, I went online on Facebook. So it was probably Christmas time, and we had a snow day. And I was like, you know what? Let me try this online with cards thing. And so I went on Facebook and I said, I'll do some people's cards for free. And I made some really weird connections with people I didn't even know. So that kind of started, that's where that started with online things. I dilly-dallied around with that. I did some home parties. And then we started moving around. And the first place that we moved to was like, officially moved to. Well, no, you want to hear about this. So we moved to Matamoros, guys, in Matamoros, Pennsylvania. We had, you guys, we were talking about this. We had a black hat, black shadow, black entity that
Hat
we
man,
saw.
like a hat man.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Kenny saw him. I saw him. He used to sit in Kenny's desk, his office desk of our. We used to have a radio station, um, with little podcasts ourselves and things like that. And in the studio, you'd walk past and you would see him sitting in the chair.
Hmm.
And my he would hang out in the hallway. He was mean, and he tried to push people down the steps. And I couldn't live there with him. I couldn't get rid of him. So we had to go. There's a lot of reasons, but he was like, I can't deal with that. I can't get rid of that. Um, Before him, I spent 8 years in, sorry, I'm all over the place, but
Oh, it's okay.
those 8 years were in northeastern Pennsylvania. I know Damian earlier, you and I just were chatting about elementals and things like that. And the house that I bought there was very spirited, and it had so many people from the community in the basement of the home, which is where my salon was. And at night, when I would go be done and close the doors, you could hear them partying downstairs, and that was really fun.
Really?
Yeah, it was really fun. And then, I had a lot of kids for clients and their parents, and the kids liked the yard because I had woods on the side of the yard, and there was two boys who would always talk about the monkeys. Do you know about the monkeys? And they weren't the only ones who talked about them, and so they were elementals, they were spirits, they were fae and such. And then when Kenny's son moved in, he lived upstairs, and he came down one time and was like, do you ever feel like you're not alone here? And I'm like, all the time. And then my niece one time, when she lived there and she lived upstairs, she was like, I see lights in the woods. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, there's eyes.
Mm.
And I was like, it's okay. And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I've been here for a while. It's okay. Nothing's going to hurt you. So, I mean, there was lots of experiences there, and I allowed myself to open up to a lot of experiences there because I was basically a hermit for 8 years. You know, you just worked, and I had everything there. I didn't have to really do much of anything, you know, except just kind of hang out and garden and things like that. So that kind of that stuff. And then let's see where else. So we moved to Wiki Wachi and we meet you guys
Yeah.
at the awesome hookah cafe. And that place, wow. I grew so much at that place because Cynthia's so open and she is so welcoming. And so there's so many energies at Euphoria.
There
And
are a lot of energies there, and it really kind of blew my mind. First of all, that a place like that existed in Spring Hill, because I mean it's so
yeah,
conservative, and there's a lot of octogenarian people that live there, and here's this hookah cafe where a bunch of hippies hung out basically, and but it had a really good vibe there. You know, I mean, uh, I remember going there and spitting poetry on poetry nights, and you know, it had the feeling of very bohemian, I guess is the word I'm
yeah.
looking for. But yeah, I'm I don't see spirits, but I feel them. And that place, I felt them all over this place. But it wasn't bad at all. It was nice, you know.
No, it was fun. We had a couple spirit sessions with some boxes and got some words and names and got called bitches
Oh,
and there
Oh.
was a guy, I always knew there was a guy in my room where I worked. And so we identified him finally as Jack. And he confirmed that the one mirror was a portal. And like there was so much that we confirmed in that one night. It was really fun. She has audio, video, whatever of it. Um, and then there was meeting you guys.
Which
That
was
was awesome.
wonderful.
you know, listeners, to catch you up here, my wife Terry had a tarot reading with AnneMarie, and from what Terry has told me about the reading, it was eerily accurate.
Yes.
And that's when I was firmly convinced that you are the real deal, AnneMarie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, it was very enlightening to say the least, and very emotional.
I'll
But I
let
don't
you
want to.
share whatever. Yeah, I was gonna say you share whatever you want, and we'll just move on from there.
Yeah, I'm not going to. I think I'm going to keep it to myself. I have
Awesome.
basically all this time, but yeah, it
Beautiful.
it was just incredible. And I think about you very often because of it,
Thank you.
which is
I
really interesting because that's exactly what, Damian said that you guys are simpatico, but what was really interesting is I was also thinking about you, that I needed to contact you in relation to some things, and then you guys made um this appointment to do this, and I'm just like, yeah, this is awesome.
I love it. The universe works and it just works it out for us, you know?
Yes, yes.
So at that
So
one place
I
where you
think of,
lived, I'm
yeah,
sorry. Well,
I
at that
just
one
wanted
place
to,
where you lived, you didn't have any bad experiences there, where you had the parties in the basement and all that?
um, bad experiences. Yeah, the only bad experience was, when my grandson came to me, who had crossed over as a baby and physically showed me how he died. And that was really rough.
Yeah, I imagine.
Um,
Wow.
and yeah, I just talked about that for the first time last week openly because that took a lot to deal with because I smelled, I tasted, I vomited.
Mm.
It was so much, and yeah, and that was all when I had broken my ankle and I was in a wheelchair and I was literally like taken over by this emotion, and it was horrible. But that's the only thing there. Everything else was really cool, really
Hmm.
fun. Yeah, yeah, very fun.
So you experiment with different methods of divination. I mean, I know you uh, uh, do tarot, obviously.
Hmm.
But when you were on our show on Black Lotus, we had our viewers send in pictures of their feet.
Yes.
And you were very accurate with that as well. And you did toe readings, which I had never heard of before.
Yeah, you nailed me pretty good.
Yeah.
And me.
Um,
I love it.
but
So
what
toes,
what what led you to doing toe readings is, I guess, my first question. How
well,
did you
my
find out
friend,
about it?
my friend Teresa, she contacted me, and I'm going to give her a little plug. PixieApothecary.com. She's all kinds of CBD products, and she saved my family's health.
Mm.
So PixieApothecary.com. My girl Teresa signed up for a toe reading with this fabulous woman named Pamela for online, and this is when we first moved to Weeki. So this is summer. So no, it was the very beginning of 2014, and Pamela gave a buy one get one free deal. So Teresa gifted me the free online course with them. So we all took it from Teresa's in Pennsylvania. I'm down in Florida. Pamela's in Colorado. And that was back then when all that was just first starting. So that's how I did my toe reading course. And it was several weeks, and we were tested to finish and all that stuff. And so that's how I got started with it. Um, Toe readings are so card readings I can do so easily. Um, and I mean that meaning I can do them online. Um, I can do them within 15 minutes, a half hour, an hour, whatever you'd like. Toe readings are a whole different ball game. I either have to do them in person or they can take me up to a week to do
Mm.
because they
Wow.
have so many different layers. Um, I read Toes for a Woman who does some soul work. It was a gift to her for Christmas. And that led me into learning about twin flames because her toes showed me that she's in this twin flame relationship and what the whole freaking relationship was about. And I had to do research because I didn't understand what her toes were showing me. And that
Wow.
taught me about twin flame relationships. So that was really cool. And she, messaged me back and was like, wow, like, wow.
I
Um,
don't know what twin flame relationship is. What's that?
so a twin flame relationship is like, I mean, basically it could be any relationship that seems difficult,
Okay.
but seems like it's a complete soul purpose. You're together for a soul purpose. So, and you come together to learn. So it's not a twin flame isn't all nicey. It's it's fire of transformation and fire of transformation coming together for lessons to be learned on dimensional levels, not just on the earth plane now.
Could that also be described as a codependent relationship?
Yes, it could be on a low level. It very much could be.
Mm.
But on a high level, it can very much be used for transformation, being this is the last reincarnation.
Okay.
So for them, what her toes were showing me was that no one knows who she is, so I'm just gonna put this. She didn't want to get pregnant. He wanted to get pregnant. And it was his sole purpose to have the child, and it was her sole purpose to give the child, because her lineage, her life cycles, her reincarnations are done. She's learned her lessons, and now he needs to carry on with his lineage moving forward. So she had to learn that it wasn't about her, that it was about him. And then to decide, and I guess I don't know how this ended up because we don't, communicate afterwards. But the reading basically was letting her know that she really kind of had to decide for him. Yeah, so it was a lot deeper than what the person that gifted it to her was about. And I learned to start going. I bought highlighter pens to go through the levels of what I was seeing in toes. Yeah, it's really cool. I have some pictures. I can send them over. But it's very, very interesting. The things that it's almost like I would do some drawings and things on the photographs of the toes.
Interesting.
So I've stepped up a little level from you guys when I read you guys' toes.
Well, and then this is another one that I had no idea even existed, but that's Spirit Scrabble, where you use Scrabble tiles to do
So I
divination.
didn't know it. I didn't know it existed either. So through COVID, I've been doing like every Wednesday, every other Wednesday on my Facebook page. I've just been playing with my tools and opening it up to, my friends. So, pick a card, pick a number, I'd pull out, like different stuff. I used every single deck that I have. So I have like Reiki cards, I have an old vintage book of tea, I have soul cards, I have animal cards. So we played with those through COVID, and I didn't have anything else left to play with. And the only game I have in the house is Uno and Scrabble. I don't even have a die. I don't have die even. And you can't even get that shit at the store because I've been looking all over since COVID. Like I haven't been in a Walmart. I didn't go there. But so I haven't been able to find a die because my friend wanted to play Yahtzee with die. And I was like, I can't even find them, man. So anyway, so I pulled out all the tiles. So I was listening to an astrology report, and the girl pulled out 5 tiles and like, I don't know, came up with some like message, and I was like, I can totally try that. Let's try that. So I put everything into a little green bag, and I took a picture and I put it out and said, let's give it a go. And so it was totally for fun. And I didn't expect nothing to come from nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like, who knows? It's always an experiment. And I definitely thought it would be fun if I could get something. And so a ton of people responded, and I had them pick anywhere from, I think it was 5 to 11 tiles. And so that's how many I would pull out, and I would just make up words. And so for some people, it was just goofy stuff. Like one person's came up toe jam. But another person's came up with her sister's name. And so I have permission to talk about this if you want
Please.
me to. Okay. So so this is a friend who's like a long lost friend when I lived in the mountains in northeastern PA, and we lost connection years ago, like 2013. And then I ended up finding her again, seeing her, and here she has twin babies. And so I reconnected with her, and you know, great to be talking again and everything. And she's raising these babies pretty much on her own, and she works full time, and she lives in her sister's basement. And her guy used to live with her, but things with that just weren't working out at the moment. And um, so she asks for Scrabble tiles, and in the Scrabble tiles, it comes up, it says Tia, which is her sister's name. So it says, if Tia framed me. And so I message her and I'm like, hey, like, I can't put this on the thread because it has your sister's name, and I guess I want to talk about it. Kind of like how I did with you, Damian. You want to talk about this?
Mhm.
And so she was like, no, like I don't feel like we have any animosity. And she explained what had happened since we had last talked. And I said, well, I don't know what this means. And she was like, well, I don't either. And I said, well, let me pull some more. And then French words started coming, which her mom, who's crossed over, is French. And we couldn't figure that out. We tried translating things. The only thing we could come up with was AUX, ox. But that was it. Like, so we moved past that. And and then I was in the shower. Then we moved past that. I think like 2 days went by. And then I was in the shower and I get all kinds of weird messages in the shower, like all kinds of weird messages. And so I'm in the shower and it's like Tia, like it's telling me that Tia framed me, like meaning like framed me in, like
Mhm.
construction. And so I message my friend again and I'm like, hey, like, what do you think? And so one thing after another, she's telling me that she's really just been struggling with the babies because they've just felt so unsettled at night. They're so unsettled, and that her son is always looking over at the closet, and that the closet door opens on its own, and it really has her creeped out, and she hasn't really talked about it, and that she has it closed up. Like she has her shoe rack in front of the closet and she only opens it to get in and out of it. And so I said, what do you think about opening the door? And she was like, okay. And I'm like, how about you got to keep it open? And she's like, how about not? So she wasn't real game for that at first, but then she was like, okay, like, okay, I can do this. And so she did, and she left it open during the evening, and she just could not leave it open at night. So first we placed crystals. I had her place crystals all around, and then that's when the next day this message came through in the shower that was like, okay, it's not just the crystals. The crystals aren't going to cut this, And so, sorry, long story short, you can edit this shit.
No worries.
The
It's a podcast,
beauty
so
of editing. um, so it ends up that, long story short, I convince her to treat this spirit who's possibly living in the closet as her own child, and to just see if that will soothe this spirit. because it seemed to really be affecting her son the most. And so she was like, okay, I'm game. I mean, she is the most loving woman anyway. And so she's like, okay, I'm game, you know? So, so she did. She talked, you know, like just talked out loud to her babies, but she included the baby. So it was just like she kept things very um neutral and just did her routine, and you know was like, okay, now we're going to put our toys away, and now we're going to close the door. And so like she gave it time to get in the door, and she closed it up, and she had a peaceful night. And so the next night, um we tried it again. And so it was like 4 nights that she tried it, and it was just, it worked. It worked.
Wow.
So she has 3 babies. She only has to feed 2, only has to change 2, but she basically has 3. And her son watches. Like, she sent me a video of her son watching this thing, and it just like, you can't see it, but you can see him following it. Like,
Right, right.
it's really, and you can see he's just not bothered at all by it now that it's free
Mhm.
to, you know, acknowledged, I guess. So anyway, as we're communicating with each other about how this thing got there, how this baby got there, what the heck's going down, we both had feelings that it was, you know, some sort of a domestic abuse, maybe drugs. We both had the feeling of a fire. And as we were discussing that, it was so crazy. The fire truck drove by our house, and like that doesn't happen very often, you know, so that was really strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been 3 weeks now since I started with Scrabble, Spirit Scrabble. Um, I've made about 3 or 4 connections. Um, I kind of think I made a connection with you guys with
Yeah,
Spirit
and I
Scrabble
gotta
today.
say, when you when you sent those Scrabble tiles, I was seriously creeped out
Yeah,
because,
so was
as our listeners know, we have what we think is a shadow person that hangs out in the hallway, but you seem to think that it's something completely different.
Yeah, unless you have 2 things.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that yours is an elemental. I think that yours told me that it was a fae, Fae,
Hmm.
and that it's usually all around you. Can kind of drive you nuts sometimes. Um, and it's it's it I use it, and I use it with a capital I, and you I don't know if you noticed that or not in our messages, but that's how it wants to be acknowledged to me. Um, and it wanted me to know that it was there before you guys. That it's home before you guys. Um, and something else, there was something, so Vita, when Vita came up, so it was like my life, but then it made me think that it there was some kind of connection with Vegas itself, because it
Okay.
was like, it's my life. You know what I mean? Like, you came into my life,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it made it feel like it was more a show. That sounds so weird, but you know, living La Vida Loca, but it wasn't like Vida. It
Okay.
was Vida. And then when that came up, Ralph, you had spoken about, so, hmm, so that, how far do you want me to go into this, Damien?
Go as far as you like.
So, so I sent you some pictures of Scrabble tiles after we just talked today. Did you
Mhm.
see them?
I haven't seen them, no.
Oh, okay. Terry, get in Damian's Facebook Messenger and look at them. um,
Unfortunately, we don't have
so,
our phones with us, so.
oh, darn. Okay. So, in your video, while I was watching your podcast, I was pulling tiles. And so as I was pulling tiles, certain things that I had pulled, then you guys started talking about. And that's when I had already pulled Fae, Fae. I had already pulled U's and 4 U's all the way around Fae. And then they made the word nut on both sides, which made me think like it played around with you and like moved things and like was just playful.
Mhm.
And so that was like all one energy. And then I'm watching the video and the guy, I pull up, you raper. And
You
up
raper?
comes you raper, you, a letter
Oh.
U, raper. And you guys you pull up the picture of the black hat shadow dude
Uh-huh.
with the 3 black women, and the one in the middle had died like right after the picture was taken. And you guys talk about like how real this picture is, and you're talking about how this certain shadow entered this shadow person, hat person, I don't remember, um comes and like holds people down in their sleep and like
Yeah, they
that
cause
stuff.
sleep paralysis quite often.
So that's who I got that you raper
Mhm.
from. Is so that energy is nasty that you guys were talking about.
Right. Right.
And
I remember
so
that story that we were reporting on that, and it was a very nasty situation.
yeah, that one was weird. And so it was very interesting because again, simpatico, synchronicities, whatever. Damian, when I messaged you today, I sent you a hand. Did you notice that? I sent you a wave, like a hand standing, a hand. And
No.
then in that podcast, it says hi. You know, I sent you a hi with a wave. And I
Oh,
don't
okay.
normally do that. I send like a heart or something like that, but I sent you a wave. And then when I watched that podcast, sorry, I'm messing with my ponytail. Um, when I watched that podcast, you know, you have a hand in the back. You got the shadow guy with a
Right.
hand.
Right.
And so I found myself immediately putting a hand up, because I just thought that was kind of cool. Like I made the connection immediately. And then right before, um, so I bring my hand down to like take pictures and things like that. And then I'd bring my hand back up because to me, it just felt like a connection, hand to hand, you know, energy to energy, you know, Reiki, like I'm staying open. And hold on. So right before you guys started talking about that, I took my hand and placed it in front of my face. So it was like a barrier between me and the phone, me and what I was watching. And it stayed there the whole time because like shit wasn't good and I didn't have a candle lit.
Hmm.
So I found that really interesting that that came through, that it was like, you know, yeah, you can't come through to me. Like I covered my face, like everything with my hand. So I
Hmm.
thought that was pretty interesting that that energy came through that way, you know, like you get no access to me.
What kind of creeped me out is you drew the 7 tiles for me, and they spelled out the 2 words rot and captor.
Yeah.
And can you explain what you think that means?
So, so before we actually physically talked, I told you I wanted to watch. The podcast because I didn't the video because I didn't want too much information from you about what I was getting. And so I asked you what that word meant to you. And I think if you look back in the messages, I probably asked you 3, 4, maybe 5 times. You never answered me. And so I felt like your fae, your your elemental energy, your playful energy was being mad at you and calling you its captor and letting you know, and this is all just how I feel about it, as my message is coming through for you guys, is that it felt like you guys were making it rot, that that you had held it captive by the thought that it was there because of heightened depressions, that it was there that it was not of a light energy, that you guys were holding it in a dark energy, and that you were holding it captive, and so it was rotting in the dark.
That's interesting. As I had mentioned, Ralph and I had an interview here at Paranormal News Network with Heidi Hollis. And Heidi Hollis is the person who coined the terms Hat Man and Shadow People. And when I told her about the experience that we have here with this shadow person, I told her that I got to see it so much that eventually I would acknowledge it and say, "Hey, how you doing?" And then it would just disappear. And she gasped and said, "No, don't ever do that, because that's what they want. They're feeding on the attention that you give them, and that they are attracted to people who suffer from depression and anxiety." And Ralph, for instance, has PTSD and severe depression and anxiety, and so does my wife. She suffers from anxiety. I do too, but not as much. But I do know that they are attracted to people that have problems with that. And so I think it's interesting that you say that we are the ones, or I am the one, who is holding it captive because of the depression. And so what would be a good way to let this thing go?
Well, so I think it's interesting in this time frame of everything that we have going on in 2020, because what I find the most interesting about it is it's 2 different types of perception on an energy. So, and it's what perception do you want to see it in? How do you feel as opposed to what you're told?
Okay.
In regards to the pandemic?
No, actually, in regards to your energies that are in your home that you feel are dark. So if you feel on one hand that they're dark because someone's told you that they're dark, but then you have another person who's saying they're actually playful, like this is actually something that's playful, this one is actually playful and just wants to be released. I just think it's interesting, it's when you compare that ideology, that thought, I don't know what the words are, the proper words.
But I'm kind of concerned with the fact that you're saying that it was here before we got here, and yet we're holding it captive.
Only because before you came, so did it cause any problems before you acknowledged it?
No, not really. But once I did acknowledge it, I mean, there were little weird things that would happen. Like I think I told you about the spoon that flipped out of the cup on our coffee,
But nothing
our counter.
evil.
But
Nothing
nothing
dark.
really evil. It was just little
Nothing
irritating
scary.
things. Yeah, no. The one thing I can say is that all three of us have a problem where we're waking up like around 3:30, 4:30 in the morning, and we're wide awake. And this has been going on with, I don't know how long it's been going on with you guys, but it's been going on with me for about 6 months now. And it's almost every single night.
Yeah, we're having that happen too. I actually have been waking up and I stay awake. And it's been horrific. That's why when you're like, "Oh no, I can't," I'm like, "I can't do 10:30, sorry." Because I'm like, I've already been up since 5:30, I've already been up since 4:30. I've been up since 3:30. Um, so I think, at that time, what are you doing? So take a moment and acknowledge what you're doing at that time, and just maybe take a moment and listen and see if there's anything that wants to speak to you. Because, I mean, they call that the witching hour, 3 to 4, it's the witching hour, and it is what it is. And it's, time that dimensions are a little bit thinner. And So listen, see why you're being woken up at that time. Are you just being woken up at that time to go to the bathroom? Then maybe it's something health wise.
Yeah,
Do you
no,
know?
not all the time. Most of the time, it's just, I don't know about you guys, but it's um, I'll just suddenly wake up and I'm not really thinking of anything, but I'm like wide awake. Um, but yeah, so
Yeah.
Do you guys have problems getting back to sleep then?
I haven't been,
Good.
not at that time. Like it's like I'll wake up and realize, oh, it's still dark, and I go back to sleep. So I haven't been having any problems going back to sleep at that early time in the morning.
but Ralph, you've had problems,
Sometimes I do. I have trouble getting back to sleep. My
you know,
mind starts spinning, and why am I waking up?
and you're on sleep medication as
Right, and
well. So
I'm medicated too, so yet it still wakes me up once in a while.
yeah, yeah, very
So
strange.
Ralph, you might want to try the like the box breath. So like that's where you want to, like you want to count to like 4 breath in, and then count to hold it, the count of 4, and then count exhale 4, and then hold it 4, and then inhale 4, and try that, and then see if you can extend it out to exhale 8. So you're like inhale 4, hold it 4, exhale 8. Inhale
Okay.
4, hold it 4, exhale 8.
I've
And
tried
at
that
that,
method and it does work
yeah.
if I'm
So
having problems
it'll
getting
help
sleep.
your mind stop, like it'll help your mind ruminate on something else, and help it just slow down, and then all that oxygen that's coming in, like, and then that extra long exhale is really just the detoxing of, all that extra air coming out of your lungs.
It's
So,
that I learned about that through a method of meditation, and what
mhm,
you're trying to do is block out everything that's racing around in your mind, and all you're doing is concentrating on your breath.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. And I try not to even think about what I'm trying to block out, because then that's just another thing for me. I'm a Virgo, so like everything goes through my head all
So
the
am I.
time. It's who is too?
I
Yeah.
am, Ralph.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, brother, I feel you, man. No wonder. No wonder we got the tiles you got. So, yeah, so that the breathing stuff, like I don't really take anything anymore for pain, and I have massive chronic pain. And so breathing really helps me so much. Like the breath work I do all day long is kind of ridiculous. People would probably think I'm kind of crazy, but I'd rather do that than be clouded
Yeah.
for
Right.
myself, because I really like love my work. And when I broke my ankle, they had me on tramadol, and I was like, nope, I'm done. I can't do this because I can't even think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's something that's interesting that you might I talked about this before in the last podcast, but and this might be something you want to edit back through, whatever, but um the very first time that cards, like the cards really came through to me was when I was laying in my bed laid up for 3 months because I had broken my ankle and leg. And I had been working with my cards since 97. This was 2011. And I'd always used my books. And I was sitting there, and my friend Matt, he has Personal Tarot with Matt on Facebook and personaltarotwithmatt.com. And he was doing like a daily read. And I just started realizing like I was given descriptions without using my book. And it was 2010 where I got my like real confidence, or 2011 where I got my confidence where I put my books away. And it was just like just me, my cards, and a pendulum.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're coming up on an hour here, so we're going to
Okay.
need to get out of here pretty quick.
Hell yeah.
But guys, do you have any other questions for AnneMarie?
We talked about that when you had started having these experiences at what was it, 8 or 11, excuse me.
11, I
Well,
think she said.
11's when I broke my neck, but Ralph, you'll actually like this. So the year before that, I had a birthday party. And I remember my friend, it was a sleepover, and she said, let's call my friend, her mom's a witch. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. So this girl's mom, who's a witch, gave me a reading on my 10th birthday. And I remember specifically saying to her that my parents were a pain in my neck. And she was like, you don't talk about your parents like that. So I got, schooling on my 10th birthday. And then when I was 11, I was leaving Catholic school. I had made the decision that I no longer wanted to go to Catholic school. I wanted to go to public school. And that summer, after synchronized swim class, I jumped up onto a diving block and did a swan dive into the pool. And I broke my neck.
Mm.
And that was the first thought when I actually had clear thought was, oh shit, I just did this to myself. I cursed myself. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was my very first ever experience with a witch. Or a witch energy, I think. But yeah, no, then it wasn't until that I can really recall right off the bat my very first experience after that. I believe I was 18 or 19, and that's when it was a friend's dad came through when I was in a bedroom at their house.
Okay.
Yep, that was the next one. And I had when my grandfather passed away, I didn't go to the funeral, and I was making cookies and he came to me. That was the only time really that I had an actual visual. Like he he stood right in front of me in a blue suit, to the point like I called my grandma and I was like, hey, what'd you bury him in? And when I told her what he was wearing, she said, no, I didn't bury him in that. I married him in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that was really cool. And she also said, sorry, cousins, that I was his favorite and that she didn't doubt that he came to me.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so that was really cool. Yep.
Terry, do you have any other questions?
I actually do have a question for you. Okay, so you're saying that we have like a fae in the house, and I don't know if you were aware of it, but we have a spirit cat in the house, and I'm kind of wondering, is it the same? Is it portraying itself to us more as a cat? Because that one I see is playful, and that I see as, because it'll like rub up against our leg, and it will do some really interesting things and make us think that, you know, it's in the room with us. So I'm wondering if we have more than one thing, or if it's that. What do you think?
Well, yeah, until the day it tried to kill me.
Well,
How to try to kill you.
it
Well, I was
tripped
walking.
him.
I was walking down the hallway, and it was nighttime, and I was walking past our studio, which is off our hallway, and I saw this. You know, it was dark in the hallway, but I saw this dark thing dart out in front of me, and it hissed at me, and I almost tripped over it. And I don't know, damn cat, you know, that kind of thing. And but then I looked up, and our own cat, our real cat, was sound asleep on the couch. And Terry and Ralph both heard the thing hiss. So, I mean, I'm sure it was there. I don't know if it's part of this elemental or shadow person, or if it's actually just a spirit of a cat. I don't know.
So look up elemental spirits after we get done, and see if any of that resonates with you, Terry. See if because they come in different forms, many different forms. When you think about, like, you know, woodland folk, and you know,
Right.
trolls, and you know, all the animals that live with them. And so if you have fae in your house, then you have fae friends, you know, just like we have pets, they could have pets. So
Okay.
it could be that. But I say, just from the experience, what I got today with your tiles and such, I think I personally would just light a candle and have a little conversation, and just open a door and a window and say, if you want to go, you can go. Like, I really am sorry for thinking that you were dark, and
Gotcha.
see what happens, you know? I don't think you, especially lighting the candle, you're protecting yourself. So I think, you know, you haven't had any bad problems, and I don't think you're opening yourself up to any. I think you're opening yourself up to releasing anything that doesn't want to be there because it feels like it's being held captive.
Okay. AnneMarie, if our listeners wanted to contact you for a reading, how would they do that?
So I have a website, and that's elementalalchemist.com. And you can contact me through the contact me there, or book me, you know, book now. Also Messenger. I love to do my messages on Messenger
Through
and
Facebook?
through Facebook, yes. You don't have to friend request me to request a message or to request a reading. I'd prefer that you not friend request me to request a reading. That way we don't have any extra connection until afterwards if you want to. And that's it. I don't really give out my phone number. So it's AnneMarie Balog, AnneMarie, all one word, Balog, Balog, on Facebook, and Elemental Alchemist also on Facebook. It's not very active, but you can still message me. It comes right to me. And then again, my website, and that's elementalalchemist.com.
Fantastic. AnneMarie, thank you so much for being with
thank
us
you.
once again.
Thank you
It's
so much, you guys.
always a pleasure to talk to you.
Wonderful talking to you. Thanks.